Welcome to Hope for the Caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberger, and I'm so very glad to be with you today. Hopeforthecaregiver.com. Hopeforthecaregiver.com. How are you feeling today? How are you doing? I ask that question because I ask that of every caregiver that I meet. Learning to speak in our own voice is a big part of us being a healthier caregiver, and healthy caregivers make better caregivers. That's what this program is all about, is strengthening you to equip you as a family caregiver to live a calmer, healthier, and, dare I say it, a more joyful life while you serve as a caregiver. Not after, not long after, while you're doing it. Okay? That's the goal. That's what we're aiming for here, is that while you and I are both serving as caregivers, because I'm doing it right here with you, we are living a healthier life. Hopeforthecaregiver.com. Hopeforthecaregiver.com. Well, today is a very special day. And you say, Peter, why is it a special day? And I'm glad you asked that question. Because today, Saturday, August 16th, 39 years ago, I said I do. Gracie said I do, and we did. And we've been married now for 39 years. 4 decades that we've been together now. How about that? And it's what a journey it's been. They haven't been easy years. They've been filled with, we don't have plateaus. I don't know what you have in your life. I don't know what you guys, those of you who are married, have in your life. We don't have plateaus. We have a roller coaster. Those videos that you see of people screaming as they go down the first drop on a roller coaster and so forth, that's pretty much our life. And it's been that way from actually before we got married. And it's, we've just never had a plateau. There are some people that, their relationship seems to just have this nice even keel and doesn't get too excitable and nothing, everything is just kind of calm and normal. Whatever that means. I don't know what normal means, but not ours. We have had quite a journey. And yeah, we've had challenges. Under my watch, when Gracie got hurt, to my best count, this is before I got married to her, by my best count, she'd had 21 operations. And 77 of them, of the 98 she's had total, have been under my watch. So that's been going on now for our entire marriage. Actually, I went through my first surgery with her just before we got married, a couple months before we got married. And so it's been you average that out over the time, and you're looking at 1.34 or something every year, and that doesn't count all the smaller procedures, all the doctor visits, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a bit of a challenge. But that doesn't mean we also haven't had amazing moments. I mean, truly amazing moments. And I'll tell you, one of those came at the Republican National Convention, Madison Square Garden, 2004. She had performed there on Tuesday night, and on Thursday night, the White House had asked us to stick around and be on the stage with the president. So if you look at any of the publications during that time, Time Magazine, Newsweek, whatever, you'll see over George W. Bush's left shoulder, there's me and Gracie. And as the balloons were dropping and we're shaking hands with the president, the first lady, and so forth, and everybody's cheering, bands playing, it was a surreal moment. And then they all left, the president, the vice president, everybody, they all left, and everybody down below on the stage is milling around and still kicking balloons and that kind of stuff. And then Leanne Womack comes out. Our kids went to school together, and she, of course, being from Nashville, we were in Nashville at the time, and she came out and sang that song, I Hope You Dance. And, I don't know if you know the lyrics of that, but it's a great song. Look it up. And it's, and she's singing that, and I'm dancing with Gracie on stage at the RNC, Madison Square Garden, and they're carrying it on television. I mean, I'm dancing with Gracie there. And think about that for just a moment. We're dancing. She's got 2 prosthetic legs. When she had her wreck, nobody thought she'd live, much less walk, much less stroll out on stage at Madison Square Gardens to perform. Gracie was the second person with a disability to perform at a political party's convention. Do you know who the first was? Ray Charles for Ronald Reagan, and then Gracie's the second. Not for Republican or Democrat, for any of them. Ray Charles was the first, and Gracie was the second. And so, to my best knowledge, and so it was just one of those surreal moments that I'm dancing, and there's Leanne Womack. I mean, she's just yards away from us. We all flew back together to Nashville the next day, but she's just yards away singing "I Hope You Dance." Gracie and I are dancing, and you think about the journey that we have. We were certainly thinking about that, and this is surreal. So, yes, it has been a roller coaster. Yes, it has been difficult, but we've had moments like that were so beyond the pale of awesome. And we had the perspective of suffering to allow us to treasure those moments. And Gracie looks back at that, she just calls it was a perfect moment. It was a perfect moment. And she looked like $1 million. And don't take my word for it, go look. It was one of those moments. And so you don't get many of those in a lifetime, but we've had several of those, of things like that were so poignant, so beautiful, so beyond the pale. But it took suffering and it took heartache to give those moments the appreciation they deserved. I don't make those rules. That's just the way it worked out. How do you appreciate good times unless you've had hard times? And this is where Gracie and I have learned to live, in this place where we appreciate the beauty that we have and the joy that we have in our life, even while in a hospital room for 5 months. We've had at least the last two, if not the last 3, Valentine's Day in a hospital. Birthdays, Mother's Day, we've had anniversaries in the hospital. We've had it all. Name it, we've dealt with it. And you can't go through this lengthy journey with the kind of numbers that we've had as far as challenges and so forth. And so what do? Are you going to say, well, we'll get through this and then we'll enjoy life? No, we're going to enjoy life in the middle of it. It's life. It's our life. It's not a bad life. It's a hard life, but it's our life. And you learn to make beautiful memories in it. And every so often, things will happen and you'll find yourself dancing, in Madison Square Garden, in front of the nation, in front of the world. And, you'll see things like that every now and then. You'll have moments like we have out here many times where we'll be standing on the deck or she'll be in a wheelchair, but we'll look at a full moon over the mountains here in Montana in a view that very few people will get to see. And the trail that we're on is hard, but I have found that most trails that are worth following to get to a view that is worth having are usually pretty difficult. But boy, the view is great when you get there, isn't it? And that's been our journey. And I'm going to have more of this as we go through today's program. I got a special thing I'm going to do when we come back. I want to play some clips, again, about love and romance in the midst of difficulty with an interview I just recently had with Jay Leno. I'll let him share in his own words his thoughts on this, which I have to say it was rather surreal to have Jay Leno call me and have a conversation with me that was a little bit surreal. Again, some of these unexpected moments where you say this would not happen had we not gone through some of the things we've gone through, but we've gone through these painful things in our life that give such texture and depth to the mountaintops that we get to experience. And being able to just have a conversation with somebody like Jay Leno, certainly, not something I get to do every day. And I got to admit, I was a bit starstruck. So we'll talk about that more when we come back. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver. Happy anniversary, Gracie. What a journey it's been. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Hope for the Caregiver, and that is the voice that absolutely captured my heart. I'll never forget the first time I heard her sing. By the way, this is Peter Rosenberg, and that is Gracie. I'll never forget the first time I heard her sing. And we were in a practice room at Belmont University in Nashville, and there were some friends of mine in there, and we were all kind of crowded in there, and I was playing and Gracie was singing, and it was like, well, now that means it's over. That voice. And I have had the indescribable pleasure of playing for that voice. You know, as a pianist, it's hard to describe that. It really is. It's hard to describe what it means to have somebody who sings like she does and to be able to play for them, to accompany them. And see, I don't play, I don't just read what's on the page. I'm not limited to, a piece of sheet music and she'll hand it to me and say, okay, play this. I can do that, but it's difficult for me to do it because I tend to embellish. So I sit down and I'll play, and I'll just play whatever chords, she needs me to play under her. And then she'll sing, and it's just, and then she'll just hum this. I can't get her to do it right this moment, but so, and so when I have somebody like that with that level of talent, it is such a joy. And this is another thing. This is another one of those high moments like Madison Square Gardens for us, where we have music that we get to, even in the worst of times, and we've had them. We had music. And I brought a keyboard into her hospital room. But there were times just in our home where we just sit around the piano and I'll play. Or she could hear me playing in the other room when she was bedridden. And she'll start singing. And, it's indescribable. It's truly indescribable. I'm pretty good with words. I write a lot of books and things like that, and I don't have the words to describe what that's like. And it's almost like it's just a taste of heaven, of how beautiful it is. It's one of those things. Did you ever read the Voyage of the Dawn Treader from C.S. Lewis? Did you ever read that? There's a scene at the end where they're at the end of the ocean and they're going to go back into their own world. I don't know how familiar you are with the Chronicles of Narnia, but they get to peek into Aslan's country. And the only words that Lucy was able to describe afterwards was, it was so beautiful that it broke your heart. And they said, was it sad? He said, no. And I just love that. It breaks your heart, but it's not sad. It's too beautiful for you to wrap your mind around in this lifetime. And this is what God has given to me as Gracie's husband, that I get to hear that voice. And I've heard her from hospital beds. I've heard her. I remember when she was singing for my mother, when Mom listens to the program. How you doing, Mom? And Mom was in ICU, and she wanted Gracie to sing "Breathe on Me, Breath of God." Well, Gracie didn't know the hymn that well, which I fussed at her about, and I fussed at her parents for not properly teaching her the hymns. Because this is one of the hymns that every Christian ought to know, every caregiver ought to know. And Gracie, I got a hymn for her, and she sang this to Mom a cappella in the hospital, and it echoed down the hallway, and I saw nurses stopping to lean their head out to listen to her sing. And this hymn, "Breathe on Me, Breath of God," Mom was struggling to breathe, and this is the hymn she requested. And it was written in 1878. The guy that wrote it, his name was Edwin Hatch. He was a Oxford theologian, and it was a prayer. He was a scholar, but he didn't write this necessarily. He wasn't commissioned to do it. It came out of his personal devotion, and he didn't bring the the academic part of it. He just really brought the heart of what he was doing. Not that those two have to be mutually exclusive, but sometimes people can be so academic minded. But in this particular case, it was kind of a deep personal cry for spiritual renewal that was inspired by John 20, verse 22, when Jesus said, he breathed on him and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit." And so these are just very short stanzas. It's such a beautiful hymn, and I thought, okay, for our hymn this week, instead of me playing it on the Caregiver keyboard, to have Gracie sing a little bit of it. And it's "Breathe on Me, Breath of God," a hymn that every caregiver should know, every Christian should know this hymn. And I did fuss at Gracie and her parents for not knowing this hymn, but I think her dad knew, but they didn't follow through to make sure that little Gracie knew it. But anyway, she knows it as an adult, and she sang it for my mother the first time in the ICU, and it's become just a staple for her for so many different things she's endured with her. So here she is singing this hymn.
Breathe on me, breath of God. Fill me with life anew, that I may love what thou dost love, and do what thou would do. Breathe on me, breath of God, until my heart is pure, until with thee I will one will to do and to know. Breathe on me, breath of God, till I am wholly thine, until this earthly part of me glows with thy fire divine. Breathe on me, breath of God, so shall I never die, but live with thee the perfect life of thine eternity. Breathe on me, breath of God. Fill me with life anew, that I may love what thou dost love, and do what thou would do.
That voice, that's what it makes me want to go to the caregiver keyboard here, and just, that's one of those hymns that every Christian ought to know, every caregiver should know. And it's breathe on me, breath of God, and a staple. It should be a staple in our life. I love that line, that I may love what thou dost love and do what thou wouldst do. And this is a song that you can sing in the midst of whatever. I know that because I watched her do this for my mother in the ICU. And I promise you, I watched nurses stick their heads out of other ICU rooms just to listen. It echoed all the way down the hallway there in Greenville, South Carolina at the hospital. And people stopped to hear. That is the strength that these hymns contain. They strengthen us, they equip us, they fortify us, they minister to us in sometimes the worst of circumstances. And it was a tough place for my mother. And here is her daughter-in-law who's got all these things going on in her own life. And both of them, by the way, are named Mary Rosenberger, because Gracie is Mary Grace Rosenberger. My mother's Mary Emma Rosenberger. So she had two Mary Rosenbergers, which is kind of odd. And they're in the hospital together. And one of them is singing to the other. But in the process, everybody on the floor within earshot. And Gracie didn't hold back, by the way. She rarely does. And it blessed all the way down the hallway. Patients, nurses, techs, everybody. And this is the power of these hymns. And so now you know why I do this. All right, we're going to be back in a minute here. We got to take a break. I'll be back right after the break and play some of my interview with Jay Leno. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver. HopeForTheCaregiver.com. Happy anniversary, Gracie. We'll be right back.
Just as the sleeping rose awaits the kiss of May, so in a world of snow, of things that come and go, well, what you think you know, you can't be certain of. You must believe in spring and love.
I'm telling you, that voice. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver, and that is my wife, Gracie. She's singing that wonderful song that's from her CD, Resilient, and she was accompanied on that one, not by me, but my piano professor, John Arn, who's been on this program. He came and played at our wedding. And he accompanied Gracie when she auditioned for the School of Music before I ever met Gracie. And then he became my piano professor before I met Gracie. She was sitting out from recovering from her wreck when I transferred into the school. And so he intersected both of us, but then we ended up starting to date and got married, and he and his wife and children, the little boys at the time, came and he performed at our wedding. An amazing friend and mentor, and I love that song of Gracie. I love it when she sings those kinds of songs, that she just brings that artistry she has. So anyway, you'll just have to pardon me, but I happen to be very much in love with my wife, and I'm very glad that she's a singer, and I get to hear that. Well, if you bought the CD, you could hear it as much as you want to as well. As promised, here's my conversation I had with Jay Leno talking about love and marriage, because he's been married for 45 years, but his wife has dementia. He and I recently were able to have a conversation, and I thought you might enjoy hearing some of this. You are busy with quite a few things, but I want to ask you, what's next for you? I mean, you're in a different place in your career. Are you still doing a lot of stand-up?
Yeah, well, I just come home every night. Luckily I can afford to do that. I'll go out, do a show Friday, do a show Saturday, come home Saturday night. Oh, I try to come home the same night. I mean, I went to Puerto Rico for a couple of hours to do a show and then came back the same day. So that's what I just try to be home as much as I can. So the atmosphere doesn't, it's good when people have these kind of conditions. You want to pretty much do the same thing on a regular basis, not upset the apple cart, as they say.
Right. Yeah. Change is not your friend in situations like
Yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Well, Mark Twain said, I like progress. It's change I don't like. But
a lot of guys are stepping into the same role that you're in. Last thing, what would you like to offer them? Something that you learned that you didn't necessarily expect that you would learn as a caregiving husband.
well, I learned I enjoy taking care of her. I mean, it's not really a burden. I'm my wife's been always been very independent, so I like that I can do things for her. And it kind of when there aren't many things that test us in life. For men, it's the armed forces. You go in, you're in Vietnam, you're in Kandahar or something. And what would I do under pressure? What would I do under fire? I was fortunate; I didn't have to do any of that. But you get married, you take a vow not to sound corny, but you know, 90% of it is pretty good. I mean, this is that 10% that's rough. Okay, this is where you earn your medal. This is where you find out, was I really a good husband, or was I just, when you're young and I was successful and we had money and we could do things, and so there was never any real test. And this, I think it's a test, and I enjoy doing it. It makes me feel good that I do enjoy doing it, because I never really quite know what the definition of love is. I think it comes down to the test to situations like this. Okay, I mean, I always knew I was in love with my wife. It's not a problem. But how much was I?
Mm.
Was it so much that I would sacrifice other things? I mean, I know guys that don't. They would rather do something else or be with someone else, or whatever it might be. And I'm glad I chose correctly and never did any of those things. So I don't know. It's just a test. I'm 75 years old, and the last 68 years have been just great. These have been a little taxing, but that's okay. I can't complain. I can afford to have a nurse come in twice a week and check on her, and I can afford to have a dentist guy come clean her teeth at the house and do all these kind of things. So I am very lucky. I mean, my heart goes out to people that are, policemen, firemen, nurses, teachers who aren't fortunate enough to have the the financial help that I've been able to have because of my job on TV and stuff. So I have no complaints at all. I'm very happy. I'm fine. Working with my wife, we went through a lot of times when she was angry and mad. Now I know she trusts me more. I'm there every day. I use photographs like flashcards. Remember this picture, honey? Remember this one? Remember this? Remember this? And maybe it's my imagination, but she's actually getting better. She's remembering things that she didn't 3 or 4 months ago. I go, oh, okay. I just try to find every little victory that I can. But
I think
it's
that's
all right.
that's something that a lot of caregivers struggle with is they're looking for the big victories. But I love what you're saying. It's the little wins, and I've said that to more fellow caregivers. Take the little win. Take the small win. Don't.
The only big win is somebody is cured, and you're not cured from this one. It doesn't work that way. The best you can hope for is hold it at bay and wait for those moments. I don't know. I mean, that's what works for me. I don't know if it works for everybody. I don't have a lot of, I'm not a guy, I'm not a needy guy. It's just not my way. We grew up in New England, and you're kind of independent, and everybody fends for themselves. And, it's just one of those life tests. And I'd like to think that I passed. I didn't pass many tests in my life, but this one I think I'm doing okay with.
Well, I would concur.
I always tell people, when you live in Hollywood, you have a lot of friends in therapy. When I was in New England, I don't know anybody in therapy, but but in Hollywood, everybody's in therapy. And I said, you know what the greatest therapy is, and it really does work. Do something for somebody else, a stranger, an elderly neighbor. If it's not financial support, it's cutting the lawn, it's running it to the market if she doesn't drive, if she's 80 years old, or whatever. And it's amazing how good it will make you feel. I mean, it really does. I was just back in Rhode Island. I have a house there, and we did a bunch of shows for the Martin Luther King Food Bank, and it was just so wonderful. It was just 100% of the money went to the food bank, and you feel so good that you were able to do something for people to help out your fellow human being, and it's a great feeling. I mean, it really is, and it's not hard for me. I like to tell jokes anyway, so if that brings some joy for people, that's terrific. But you can do it in all kinds of different ways. Be a caregiver for, when I was growing up, the people lived in front of us had a child with some horrible disease. I'm not sure what it's called. The baby could not be on its own for more than 20 minutes, a half an hour, or its heart would stop.
Mm.
Someone had to hold the baby and just gently shake it all the time. And all the women in the neighborhood and some of the men took turns holding the baby, And my mother was so afraid that she would go over in the middle of the night, and she's so afraid she'd fall asleep holding the baby, and the baby would die or something like that. But that went on for until the child became a young adult and eventually passed away in her early 20s. But it was just the same kind of thing. Everybody felt that they were pitching in, and they were helping a neighbor and helping somebody that had, God forbid, a problem you'd never want to have in your whole life. Imagine having a child if you leave it for 15 minutes, his heart will stop. I mean, it was an unbelievable thing. It was just like, oh my God, you just pass this baby around, and it was just crazy. I just remember my mother going through that, but how good it made my mother feel to be able to be a part of it, and me too. And that was, I don't know if that makes any sense at all. But
It makes a lot of sense. And there was a time where community being involved like that was preeminent. And I hope we can continue back towards that, because I think you're right. It does. I'll let you go because I know you're very busy. Can I ask you one question about comedy?
yeah,
And, we're seeing a lot of stuff going on with the late night shows and so forth. You're out of that game. You don't have to do it, but your name comes up a lot. Do you ever think we'll get back to some of the things that you did, Letterman did, Carson did, with that kind of where comedy can be a uniter? Do you think we'll get back to that as in the
well, yeah,
media?
yeah. I mean, I'm on the road every week. I'm somewhere doing shows. I mean, you're there now. It's just, we live in an era now where everybody has to know how everybody feels about every issue. And we live in this world of stereotypes. If you're a vegetarian, then you're this and you're this or you're this. If you own a gun, then you're this and you're this. I mean, and none of those are really true. I have good friends on both sides of the aisle. Some I agree with, some I disagree with. But it doesn't affect our friendship, You have to be a bit understanding. Everybody's a bit different. But, I kind of blame social media, because people can hide behind things. They can post things with a phony name and start a big ruckus.
I think that's a very good analysis of all this going on with it. And I love comedy. I've always loved your comedy. I've loved stand up for. I tried a little bit of it, but my life doesn't lend itself to that. But I absolutely admire what you do. I sat out there and watched you and Jeff when you guys did that show together, and I watched two guys at the pinnacle of their profession, and it was just enthralling. Jeff brings this storytelling thing that he does, and the way you come out with jokes. Your dad was a fighter,
Yeah.
and I was watching you telling jokes, and you're out there just hitting jokes. I mean, right and left, body blows. And if you didn't laugh at one, you didn't have time to even think about it because here comes the next one. And it was a ride for an hour that you did this. I thought, I just love this. And so I thank you for that night. Gracie was with me that night and we were just howling, and it was a great show. I'm up against the clock, so we got to take a break. I hope you enjoyed a snippet of my conversation with Jay Leno. You can hear the whole interview on my Substack page, caregiver.substack.com, or at my website, hopeforthecaregiver.com. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver. We'll be right back.
There is no word I've ever heard before. No, it's not love. It's even more. It's even more than one can measure. Even longer than forever. It's like a fire in me, inspiring me to love you even more.
Welcome back to Hope for the Caregiver. This is Peter Rosenberger, and that is my wife, and that is why that voice captured me, and I love her singing that song. That song is called Even More, and I it's our anniversary, 39 years, 39 hard-won years, and we've crammed an awful lot into 4 decades of relationship and marriage and all the things that we've been through. A lot of you all know that. You followed along with me over the years on this program, and I'm celebrating the fact that we have a relationship that has endured, which is not an easy thing in today's world, is it? But we do. And I love that song that she does. I love listening to her sing. And so we're going to, by the way, I'm doing the hymns every week, and I'm going to have her singing on at least 1 or 2 of them coming up in the near future. I've just got to get her to the microphone where she's a little bit more steady and comfortable doing so. And then we've been renovating our little cabin out here, and I've made a bigger bedroom for her that's more handicap accessible and everything else. And we're hoping to move into that in the next couple of weeks. And then I'll have my studio set up so that I can do this program and other things that I do, and she'll be able to get to it a little bit easier, and she'll sing. Do you think that'd be all right? Would y'all like to hear her sing some of these hymns with me at the Caregiver keyboard? And she will do that. Is that with your permission? May I do that? Well, without your permission, I'm still going to do it because she sings great, and I just need to get her back singing. I mean, we all do. I mean, I told her, I said, baby, we're going to get you back singing. It's going to happen. She's been worried about her voice with all the tubes and surgery but she's going to be fine. I was listening to her sing. She's working that voice back into shape, and she's going to be just fine. I hope you've enjoyed this program today. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Jay. Jay Leno, you can go and hear the whole thing on my podcast. Go out to hopeforthecaregiver.com. You see it on the website. And you can also go out to my Substack page, caregiver.substack.com, and hear the whole interview. It was a lot of fun. He called, and Gracie was, she had a physical therapist here. And when he called, I said, Jay, I just want to get on your calendar so I can interview you and have you on my show. And he said, well, why don't we do it right now? Let's just do it right now. And I'm like, well, Jay, you got to give me 15 minutes. I got a physical therapist right here. And so the PT left, and he had trouble calling into the system I used to be able to record phone calls. So I just recorded it on my phone. And I've never done that before, but I thought, okay, here we go. And it beeped every so often. If you were listening, you could probably hear the beeps. And I didn't know if I would have enough memory. And I didn't know if it was working or anything else. And I was a little bit nervous, and I was doing this all off the cuff. I mean, there was no notes. It was all extemporaneous. And at the end of it, I said, Jay, I hope this thing recorded. And he said, if you didn't, we'll do it again, my friend. We'll do it again. So he was really great. I try to just get out of his way in the interview. And a friend of mine told me, he said, well, Peter, you're quick. You can keep up with Jay. And I said, no. I'm quick. Jay makes me look like Floyd from Mayberry, Floyd the barber. It just, his mind is so fast and so sharp. And it was a fascinating time to be able to have this conversation with him. And I hope we'll be able to do more. and do keep him in your prayers. It's a tough thing. I mean, he and Mavis have been married 45 years, and like you said, and the last several years have been a test and a pretty significant one. I think he's got a great attitude about it, but this audience knows how difficult it is and how lonely it can be. And so do keep him in your prayers. And I do appreciate very much him taking the time to talk with me. It was a bit surreal. I'm not going to kid you. That's the biggest celebrity interview I've ever done. And it was a bit surreal. Switching gears, I want to let you know that on August 20th, next week, my book releases. It's called A Caregiver's Companion, Scriptures, Hymns, and 40 Years of Insight for Life's Toughest Role. And you can pre-order it today, and it'll certainly be hitting wherever books are sold starting next week. But you can pre-order today and probably have it delivered to you very soon after, because I think they probably start doing those things even earlier than the release date. I think you'll find this book very meaningful to you. What I've done is I've taken a quote that I've said over the years, and I will partner that quote with a scripture or a hymn stanza of something that has sustained me through this journey. In fact, I tell you what, today's August 16th, and I'll go to page 16. And the quote on that page is, "Caregivers require regular breaks, preferably without being criticized by others." That's a quote I've said. I've coined that many years ago. And the scripture I put with that is Hebrews 4:9. "So then there remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God." It's all about you and me as caregivers, and we can take a break. We don't need to be criticized. God put it right there in Scripture that we can have a Sabbath rest. Now, I don't know what that looks like for you. It's a little difficult for me to have a Sabbath rest, but part of a Sabbath rest for us is not the fact that we get a day off and we don't have to do anything that's caregiving related, but that we're not striving to somehow fix this. A Sabbath rest for us as caregivers doesn't mean we get one day off that we don't have to be a caregiver, because I don't see that happening anytime soon for me. But what it means is it's a daily, hourly, and sometimes minute by minute reminder to myself that I don't have to fix this. I am a steward. I can rest that He has this. Do you see the difference? And it's an internal place of rest for me. And then I have a place on each of those, whether there's a scripture or the hymn, and it says, "My thoughts here," where you can journal along with your thoughts. This is my journal. This is my journal for 40 years as a caregiver, and I've made a place for you to journal along with me. It's just one quote and a scripture or a hymn. It's pretty easy because I know the life of being a caregiver. I don't have time to sit down and read a bunch of books. I listen to a lot of things on audio because while I'm doing laundry and everything else. By the way, nobody ever told me there was so much laundry involved in just being an adult and certainly a caregiver. But here we are. But while I'm doing my chores, I listen to things, but I can't sit down and read a book very easily like I used to in the old days. And so I did something that was very, very simple for caregivers. You can turn to any page and you'll find something that's going to help you right in that moment. Not a week from now, not a day from now, but right in this moment. We're about out of time, and I want to end this program today with a special song. You may have heard it before. This is a song that I wrote with a buddy of mine in Nashville. His name was actually Buddy. And Gracie sings this with, look, it's me telling you how much I adore this woman, and I love to hear her sing, and I love her singing this song. And I wrote this to express a caregiver's heart. This is Peter Rosenberger. This is Hope for the Caregiver, hopeforthecaregiver.com. Happy anniversary, Gracie.
I know what this means. I'm not unaware. I understand the cost, what I pay to care. I see who you are. I see all you've been. I still love you now, like I did way back when. A road turned, but I'm still here walking with you. Right I can only hold you now. Memories have wings. Some will fly away. I will keep them safe, and we still have today. I looked in your eyes. You smiled back at me. All I need to know, right there for me to see. Our road turned, but I'm still here walking with you. Right here, right now, that's all we can do. In this moment, I live my life with you. I know there will be sorrow. We'll face that somehow. But my hands can't hold tomorrow. They can only hold